Paul Krugman. Now, Paul Krugman is an economist over there at the New York Times, and he's got a recent column out there explaining away the problems with the economy, or most importantly, the problems that Joe Biden is having when it comes to voters in the economy. Because poll after poll after poll says that the American people are feeling like the economy is awful because, well, the economy is awful. But Paul Krugman has an answer because, Paul Krugman, when has he ever been wrong? He says that the economy is actually much better than what pundits think. The reason is it's MAGA extremists who are actually the problem here. I'm not kidding. Don't believe what you're actually feeling. The poor public perceptions that people are experiencing right now in the election are entirely about MAGA. You see that? If you're feeling the pinch right now, it's because of MAGA. He goes on to say, and I'm reading from the column, poor public perception about the economy is being promoted by MAGA Republicans who are angry that Donald Trump isn't still president. Indeed, weak consumer sentiment may be almost entirely about MAGA. It's been obvious for a while that views of the economy have become increasingly partisan. It's also clear that this partisanship is asymmetric. Republicans are much more likely than Democrats to say the economy is good when their party holds the White House and bad when it doesn't. You see there? If you feel like the economy is bad, it's really because you're just a MAGA fascist. Now, never mind the fact that car insurance has increased by 20.3%. Damn you, MAGA! Sporting event tickets, 15%. Veterinarian services, 10%. Car repair, 10%. Non-prescription drugs, 8%. Cigarettes, 8%. Baby food, 7%. Trash collection, 6.5%. Rent is up 6.2%. And eating out is up 5.2%. And guys, that's just in the last year, when inflation has been a little bit better compared to Joe Biden's first 2 years. But Paul Krugman will promise you that that's just because of Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. RNC Research shares this year over year inflation in December went up 3.4%. That's twice what it was when Biden took office. The 33rd straight month with inflation above 3%. Prices up 17.3% since Joe Biden took office. But if you're Paul Krugman at the New York Times, it's just because of Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. Oh, but there's more. Let's turn it over to CNBC, who did some analysis on inflation and what the dollar buys.
If you take core CPI, the actual index, which is seasonally adjusted, the read there is 313.216. That probably doesn't mean anything to you. It means something to me. That's the highest it's ever been. It's ever been. Now remember, Bureau of Labor Statistics brings out this number. Go to their website. When did COVID start? March of 2020? Okay, this is a decent number. That means Nov was the most updated we had prior to about 2 minutes ago. If you go to their website and you look at their CPI inflation calculator and you put in Feb of 2020, what you'll find is it takes $1.19 of Nov $23 to buy what bought $1 pre-COVID. Do it if you don't believe me.
Did you follow that? It went by fast. It's numbers, so let's do it again so you can watch it in real time.
And you put in Feb of 2020, what you'll find is it takes $1.19 of Nov $23 to buy what bought $1 pre-COVID.
Right. If you go to the Consumer Price Index on the Department of Labor Statistics, you look at the numbers at February of 2020, 1 month before COVID, and you put in $1.19, that's exactly how much it'll cost to buy something that costs $1 November of 2023, a month and a half ago. That's what's happened with inflation. And by the way, we know that inflation didn't start during 2020, during the Trump presidency or the last week of the Trump presidency. It all started when Biden came into office. It's his policies that have caused the inflation. So $1 February of 20, but basically 4 years ago, next month, $1 in February of 2020, whatever you bought then for $1 now costs you $1.19. But if you go over to the White House and you ask Karine Jean-Pierre about inflation, she'll tell you this.
Communities across America are coming back thanks to Biomics and his Investing in America agenda, which have ushered in a small business boom, created good paying jobs with rising wages, strengthened local economies, and lowered costs for hard working families. Biomics, it's working.
Bidenomics, it's working. You know, it's one thing to sit like I do and speak off the top of my head and tell you what I believe and give you my opinion. And hopefully it sounds believable because it literally is what I believe, right? But that's not always easy for people. But when you've written out a script and your job is to be the communications boss for the White House, you're the White House press secretary and in charge of communicating the message of the White House, and you've actually written this so you can practice it over and over again, and you still can't make it sound believable.
Communities across America are coming back thanks to Biomics and his Investing in America agenda, which have ushered in a small business boom, created good paying jobs with rising wages, strengthened local economies, and lowered costs for hard working families. Biomics, it's working.
Does anyone believe this one? She doesn't even believe it. She can't even sell it to herself, let alone the reporters and the American people. And then she continued.
Wages are up, right, which is incredibly important. And so, look, one of the things I will say is that the cost reduction momentum over the volatility, right? If you think about Maganomics, which economists warn would worsen inflation with tax giveaways to rich special interests.
Oh, it's all rich special interest again. My God, it's just so boring and so tiresome, right? Again, you bought something in February of 2020, 4 years ago, when Donald Trump was still president. You bought something for $1. You buy that same thing right now, and it costs you $1.19. That's real. That's legit. That's the average thing, by the way. That's the Consumer Price Index, which takes a ton of things across various broad spectrums. Some things, it costs twice as much. Some things even more so. But if you ask Paul Krugman, the chief economist over there at the New York Times, he'll say whatever perception you have about the economy, it's really entirely about MAGA. Which begs the question, who is this Paul Krugman guy? Why should we even believe him, right? Well, let's take a walk down memory lane about some of Paul Krugman's greatest hits. When Donald Trump was elected president, the next day he predicted a global recession. That's right. This is Politico from 2016, November 9th, right after the election. Trump is the mother of all adverse effects. The Nobel Prize, he won a Nobel Prize for economy. The Nobel Prize-winning economist predicted that the Republican nominee's administration could quickly undo the progress that the markets around the world have made in the 8 years since the financial crisis. Boy, oh boy, was he wrong about that. Oh, but the wrongness of Paul Krugman doesn't end there. After Joe Biden was elected, he wrote an article with the headline, "Making the Most of the Coming Biden Boom. The economic outlook is probably brighter than you think," he said, right after Joe Biden was elected president. And, well, we know what happened there. And if we go way, way, way back to Paul Krugman, back in the 90s, he predicted that the internet's impact on the economy would be no greater than the fax machine's impact on the economy. Now, you've probably heard that thrown around quite a bit. He said it in 1998. By 2005 or so, it will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than the fax machines.
That's got to be the worst economic prediction since Paul Ehrlich and Population Bomb.
Yes. That's right.
That's so bad. That is so bad.
Well, and it's so bad, Kevin, that you see it thrown around and people refer to it, and it's like, that can't be real. It can't be real that this guy is the New York Times chief economic columnist, and he was that wrong about the internet. So this article that we're looking at right now, is from Snopes. See, I hid that from you. It's from Snopes because I wanted to be sure that this was real. Fact check true. 100%. Paul Krugman's economic prediction, 1998. The internet, fax machine was more impactful. But this is the guy that the left loves. It's the guy that the New York Times still pays tons of money to give his economic outlook. And he's the guy that Democrats and liberals will continue to quote as the expert on the economy. Wrong about the internet, wrong about the Trump election and the economy that Trump brought to the world, wrong about Biden's economy, and certainly wrong today.